Real science. It's been a while. This is the insane biology of the Greenland shark. I have no fucking idea what the Greenland shark is. A shark from Greenland? What would make it different from any other shark though? Greenland is really cold, yeah? So this is probably a shark that dwells in really, really cold water. Really cold climate. So let's see.
In the frigid depths beneath the Arctic ice, an unsettling and ancient creature drifts through the dark waters. The Greenland shark is the largest fish in the Arctic Ocean, and one of the largest and most mysterious sharks on Earth. Fishermen who've encountered them describe them as ghosts, due to their sluggish demeanor and pale, almost lifeless eyes. Eyes often parasitized by a
Yeah, I think she's mentioned this thing before. This thing with the eyes, they have something latched onto their eyes, man, like a parasite. That is so disturbing, man. That's torture, man. That's torture, bro. Dude, some parasites are just such assholes, man. Like, I've seen parasites that live in, like, inside nostrils. They have to be pulled out. Well, the animal can't do it. You see people doing rescues. I don't know what animal it was. It had, like, a thing stuck in its nose. This is another tragic situation. Just pick another sport, bro.
And pale, almost lifeless eyes. Eyes often parasitized by a repulsive worm-like crustacean that conspicuously and upsettingly dangles there. And
They can't even scratch that shit off.
often, fishermen recoil if they accidentally catch one, overwhelmed by their smell, a smell of urine. Catching one is indeed often an accident because their flesh is toxic. Sled dogs that have eaten large quantities of it become shark drunk, and this is not as fun as it sounds. They suffer symptoms like hypersalivation, vomiting, explosive diarrhea, convulsions, followed by death. But these sharks are more than just gross and unsettling. They seem to defy the rules of nature. They only swim at about 2 kilometers per hour, and yet they are considered a top predator in their environment. And they're the only shark that can withstand the cold waters of the Arctic year-round, and can live at depths over 2,000 meters, where the water temperature can fall as low as -2 degrees Celsius. And on top of this, these sharks can be ancient, in the truest, most literal sense of that word. They can be so old that there are likely individuals swimming in the sea that were alive before Christopher Columbus voyaged to the Americas, before Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel, while the Aztec and Incan empires were still thriving. Scientists estimate their average lifespan to be 272 years. But based on growth analysis, some individuals could be well over 500 years. This makes the Greenland shark the longest living vertebrate on Earth. For centuries, the secrets of the Greenland shark have been locked beneath the ice and in the shadows. But now, the black box is beginning to open, and its mysteries are starting to be revealed. Why is the Greenland shark so toxic? And how is it possible that it's a top predator? How can it survive in both extremely deep and extremely cold waters? And how does it live so unbelievably long?
I feel so bad for them with the high
Greenland sharks are among the largest shark species, typically growing to 6 to 7 meters or 20 to 24 feet in length. They live in the North Atlantic and Arctic Oceans, but can occasionally be found further south. Recently, one was found in the Caribbean, but can occasionally in length. They live in the North Atlantic and Arctic Oceans, but can occasionally be found further south. Recently, one was found in the Caribbean, but that one seemed to be extremely lost. Their cylindrical bodies can weigh up to 1,000 kilograms or 2,200 pounds, comparable to a great white shark. But despite size similarities, these two sharks could not be more different. Whereas great whites are known for their incredible bursts of power and speed, Greenland sharks' top speed is only around 3 kilometers per hour at best. But
Top three.
despite this, Greenland sharks are surprisingly a top predator in their ecosystem. They eat fish like cod and occasionally even seals. This, at first glance, seems like it should be impossible. How can this sluggish shark ever dream of catching a flitting, agile marine mammal? To find out more about this, I talked to Eric St. Marie, PhD candidate at the University of Windsor in the Hussey Lab.
We know they'll eat all sorts of different things. They'll eat everything from fish to squid to even seals and whales. But are they eating those things always when they're already dead, so scavenging? Or are they hunting live prey? Knowing those differences really helps us understand what their actual role is in the ecosystem. But because we don't really know how they're finding their food, we know that they do scavenge, but we also have evidence from Inuit hunters that they might actually be also actively hunting live prey.
But how would that even be possible?
One of the theories people put out is that they might be getting seals when they're sleeping in the water column. So for a seal, a polar bear might be their biggest risk. And so it's safer for them to risk sleeping in the water than it is to be sleeping out on the ice. But that might give a Greenland shark, which has a very powerful nose, a chance to catch the seal. Even though the seal, technically, if it knew the Greenland shark was coming, could outswim it, the sharks might use kind of cryptic or ambush style predation to get these animals. But again, we just don't have enough information on that yet.
So this is what Eric is focusing on in his research. And to learn about it, he tags as many sharks as he can. And these tags are collecting a ton of information.
The tags we put out typically collect between 16 and 100 data points per second, and that's X, Y, Z acceleration, temperature, depth. A few of our newer tags, which are really cool, have a built-in sonar or hydrophone. Marine mammals are very noisy, right? So you can hear whales and seals quite clearly, and so that can kind of help us see what is the shark doing, looking at the acceleration data, when there's a seal or a whale nearby, and they can give us kind of clues on whether or not they're going after live animals.
But hunting or scavenging, the Greenland shark's bite is like nothing else. If the shark doesn't manage to swallow its prey essentially whole, their teeth sometimes act like a giant hole punch. Beluga whales have been seen swimming around with giant circular chunks missing, and the stomach contents of a Greenland shark are sometimes perfectly round. The circular gape of a Greenland shark is made up of distinct top and bottom sets. The upper teeth are small and pointy, and the lower teeth are broad and square like a razor blade. Their teeth are so sharp that cutting tools were historically made from Greenland shark jaws in Inuit societies. But hunting and catching seals is still somewhat surprising, because Greenland sharks are considered to be effectively blind, for probably the worst reason nature has ever come up with. A particular parasitic copepod called Omatacoita elongata latches directly onto the shark's eyeballs. And these are not small, imperceptible things. These things are huge, up to 6 centimeters, and they dangle, dancing in the current as the shark swims, like hair blowing in the wind. What a strange thing to have evolved. Like, what a very specific thing.
Yeah, whenever there's an opportunity to be exploited by a parasite somewhere is going to find that. So Greenland sharks have very kind of rough skin, rougher than even other sharks, which are known for having that kind of sandpaper-like skin. It's possible that because the eyes are one of the few kind of soft spots on a Greenland shark, that might be why that's where this parasite evolved to attach to.
And this phenomenon is so common for Greenland sharks, it's almost a guarantee. In one study that looked at over 1,500 Greenland sharks from East Greenland, scientists found the parasite on 98.9% of them. And some scientists think that these parasites damage the shark's cornea enough that the shark is effectively blind, capable of only basic light reception and rough image formation. You might think that such poor vision would decrease the hunting and foraging success of the Greenland shark, but clearly they're all surviving just fine with this affliction, as fine as you can be with a worm crab attached to your eyeball. So the sharks might not really rely on vision for survival at all. Other senses likely compensate. If you look closely, this area on the shark's face is full of tiny little black dots. These are pores called ampullae of Lorenzini. These are sensory pores that all sharks have along their snout, the mouth, and the top of their head. Filled with an electrically conductive jelly, the bottoms of the pores are lined with hair-like cells called cilia. These cilia respond to changes in nearby electrical currents transported by the jelly, which triggers nerves in the shark's brain, which tells them something alive is nearby. But this electrosensory ability only works from about 1 meter away, while the shark is locking onto its target in the final moments before attack. To sense prey at longer distances, they use their incredibly acute sense of smell. The nostrils of a Greenland shark are large, which connects the outer world to their olfactory rosettes. These are highly folded sensory organs found in the nasal cavities of fish, which act as their primary smelling mechanism.
Greenland sharks had one of the smallest brains of all sharks relative to body size, but the only exception to that being that their olfactory bulbs, so the parts of the brain associated with smell, were larger than many other sharks. So that kind of indicates that maybe they rely more on smell than other senses.
Guided by their smell, Greenland sharks travel far and wide. In one study, Greenland sharks' movements were tracked for 11 months. All sharks traveled a minimum of 315 kilometers, and some as much as 1,615 kilometers, at depths of over 1,800 meters. Other studies have found Greenland sharks swimming as deep as 2,909 meters near the mid-Atlantic ridge. This is within the bathypelagic zone, or the midnight zone. No sunlight penetrates here, and the pressure is immense. For every 10 meters of depth, the pressure increases by 1 atmosphere, which means that at 2,900 meters, the pressure is 290 times greater than at sea level. Humans, with our gas-filled lungs and body tissues, would be instantly crushed. So how do Greenland sharks do it? One hint comes by looking at the different depths that a Greenland shark swims in.
So we often think of them as deep water species, but they can basically occupy everywhere from the very deep all the way up to the surface. One advantage that deep sea sharks have that other fish don't is that most fish will regulate their buoyancy with swim bladders, which is a gas-filled bladder within their bodies, which is also why if you're fishing for deep sea fish and you bring them to the surface, often they will actually kind of like vomit out their innards because the gas bladder will expand as the pressure decreases as it's moving up. And so it can be hard for these types of fish to cover large ranges of depth. But for a shark, which doesn't regulate buoyancy with a gas bladder, they have large fatty livers, which they use to regulate their buoyancy. And so those livers are not affected by the pressure as much as a gas bladder would be. So it allows the shark to kind of cover these large ranges of depth.
But lacking a swim bladder isn't quite enough. And at a certain point, immense pressure causes the interactions between water molecules to become destabilized, and proteins can start to unfold as a result of water penetration. And even fish with no gas pockets can have cellular function disrupted. And there's something else about the deep Arctic water that's dangerous besides the pressure: the extreme cold. Here, water can reach -2 degrees Celsius, or 28 degrees Fahrenheit, below freezing temperatures. The ocean water remains liquid because its salt content lowers its freezing temperature. But this level of cold could still very much cause problems for the tissues and proteins within the bodies of any animal living there. Even the hardiest proteins would cease to function properly without some form of chemical protection. So Greenland sharks and some other deep-sea species have a trick to solve this. It comes in the form of something called TMAO, trimethylamine N-oxide, a naturally occurring compound found in many marine fish and shellfish. TMAO acts like a shield inside the cell, protecting the cell's proteins from the distorting effects of freezing temperatures and high pressure. TMAO stabilizes water molecules, which keeps the water from crushing and deforming proteins under high pressure. And TMAO also helps maintain the folded structure of proteins, which when exposed to cold temperatures, would otherwise unfold and lose function. This means the more TMAO a marine organism has within its cells, the more pressure and cold it can withstand. Thus, it's not surprising that the deeper a sea creature lives, the more TMAO is found in their cells. The Greenland shark and the related spiny dogfish have among the highest levels of TMAO on record. And high levels of TMAO are also what makes the Greenland shark poisonous. TMAO can metabolize into trimethylamine, which can cause the dangerous intoxication I mentioned before. TMAO also counteracts urea-induced protein denaturation. And this is important because the Greenland shark retains high concentrations of urea to maintain osmotic balance and avoid dehydration in salty seawater. The urea, by the way, is what makes the sharks smell like pee.
Yeah.
So with their stabilized proteins, osmotically balanced bodies, and chemical and electrosensory abilities, Greenland sharks drift through the abyss unbothered, moisturized, and in their lane. They are so well adapted to this environment that they can exist within it for centuries. The first hint at their extended mortality came almost a century ago. In 1936, a Greenland shark was caught and was measured to be 2.77 meters long. It was tagged and released back into the ocean. Pretty standard stuff. But 16 years later, something incredibly lucky happened. Scientists caught the same shark again. This time, it measured 2.86 meters in length. It had grown just half a centimeter per year, a glacially slow growth rate. Great whites, as a comparison, easily grow half a meter per year. Scientists were starting to do the mental math. At that rate, a 6-meter-long Greenland shark would be centuries old. Verifying this, however, was not possible, and for many,
Maybe the growth rate is affected by other factors. Maybe sometimes they grow faster, sometimes they slow down their growth. But if they're just in the same area, Greenland, yeah, Greenland, the cold water, those extreme depths, if they don't venture out of that area that much, maybe the environmental factors don't change as much. I don't know. Maybe their growth rate gets affected by different things. I don't know.
it was centuries old. Verifying this, however, was not possible, and for many, it was too wild to believe. But recently, this assumption got backed with concrete evidence for the first time. Scientists in Denmark published a breakthrough paper about lens crystallins, a class of protein found in the human eye. These are structural proteins that make up the eye's lens and give it its transparency and focusing power. But what's unique about them is that they remain constant throughout a person's lifetime. They're not replaced or significantly remodeled once formed. And like all organic molecules, they contain carbon, including some small amount of the isotope carbon-14. Carbon-14 is a radioactive isotope of carbon with an atomic nucleus containing 6 protons and 8 neutrons. It's always occurred naturally on Earth, created mostly when incoming cosmic rays strike the atmosphere. And in recent decades, humans created much, much more thanks to nuclear weapons. But whether naturally occurring or man-made, levels of carbon-14 fluctuate from year to year. Huge spikes of it can be seen in the 1950s and 60s, for example, when humans were going crazy with their nuclear weapons testing. So by comparing a person's carbon-14 within their crystalline lenses to historic records of carbon-14 in the atmosphere, the Danish scientists found a way to determine a deceased person's date of birth. Could this method be applied to Greenland sharks? In 2016, the answer would be revealed to be a resounding yes. The scientists used radiocarbon dating to assess the ages of 28 Greenland sharks that ranged in size from 502 to 81 centimeters in length. The smallest 2 sharks had the highest levels of carbon-14, which makes sense, since they were born after the nuclear bombs deposited that extra carbon-14 into the atmosphere and then their eyeballs. So these sharks were probably less than 60 years old. But the larger sharks had less carbon-14 and showed radiocarbon signatures that were much older. The scientists determined the age of the largest pre-bomb shark to be 392 plus or minus 120 years, meaning the shark would be at least 272 years old and at most 512 years old. They also noted the age of sexual maturity to be at least 156 plus or minus 22 years. At the upper end of this range, this means that Greenland sharks grow at around 1 centimeter per year. The tectonic plates drift apart twice as fast. It's hard to comprehend the reality of a Greenland shark, drifting through freezing, dark, deep water with worms attached to your eyeballs for centuries. Generations of every other creature living and dying, even evolving right beside you. The existential fatigue would become unbearable, life stripped of its urgency and passion, drifting in the eternal darkness in your stink-filled piss body. Though I suppose they probably aren't too concerned about this stuff. But if you believe in reincarnation and are also a bad person, you should maybe be worried. Philosophy aside, the Greenland shark does something that no other vertebrate can do. And that leaves us all asking, how? One explanation comes back to that glacially slow metabolism. A slower metabolism produces less oxidative stress and cellular damage over time, as the body is burning energy at a slower rate, resulting in less wear and tear on tissues and organs, which is considered a key factor in aging. This is a pattern you can see elsewhere in the animal kingdom. Bowhead whales, who also live in Arctic waters and have a slow metabolism, live to be 200 years old. Galapagos tortoises, who have a low metabolic rate to survive the harsh, resource-scarce environment of the Galapagos Islands, live to be between 100 and 200 years old. Even the naked mole rat, a small rodent, has a slow metabolism to deal with their low oxygen underground environment and can live to be 30 years old, which is a lot for a rodent. But to really understand the mechanism of how the Greenland shark lives so long, we need to understand its DNA. This is easier said than done, but scientists have begun the daunting task by sequencing the Greenland shark's genome. And when they did, they found something surprising. Their genome is enormous, about 6.5 billion base pairs. For reference, we have 3 billion base pairs. This is the biggest of any shark that's been sequenced to date. But even more surprising was what this genome was made up of. More than 60% of it was composed of transposable elements, aka jumping genes. And these genes have a terrible reputation. Jumping genes are DNA sequences that can move from one location to another within an organism's genome, essentially jumping to a different spot, which can sometimes cause mutations and alter the genetic makeup of the cell. This can lead to disease or developmental issues. And yet, the longest-lived vertebrate on Earth is full of them. The researchers think the sharks could be hijacking the machinery of these jumping genes to duplicate genes involved in DNA repair, basically copying and pasting more of the beneficial genes that counteract things like cancer. But for now, this is just a hypothesis, and more studies need to be done to find out for sure. One fascinating way to learn more about the Greenland shark's peculiar DNA will be to compare it to its evolutionary relative, the Pacific sleeper shark, a shark that looks and behaves much like the Greenland shark but doesn't live as long. So while we don't exactly know all of the answers as to how the Greenland shark lives so long, there are a few clear answers as to why. We know that animals that face high extrinsic mortality, like predation and infectious disease, have to develop quickly. They live fast, die young, so to speak. They do this so that they can pass their genes on to the next generation as quickly as possible before they die. Animals with low extrinsic mortality can delay development, they can delay reproduction, and thus can extend their lives and delay death itself. This just shows that not much is bothering the Greenland shark. Not many predators, not many diseases. The Greenland shark only has to deal with the crush.
That fucking parasite is the biggest issue they face. That fucking parasite that attaches to their eyeball, man. Like, they can survive all this stuff. They're almost a super species. Except for that fucking parasite, man.
Predators, not many diseases. The Greenland shark only has to deal with the crushing weight of time. Speaking of time's unrelenting march, this video is a milestone for me. Or I thought it was. I was ready to write a whole thing about this being the 100th video, and then I decided to double check and it's actually the 102nd, but the point I'm about to make still stands. We've been doing this for a while now, more than 5 years, and each of these videos has been a big endeavor in its own right. Many people have helped make these videos, and most importantly, many of you have actually watched them, more than I ever dreamed was possible. But the journey has not always been smooth. Recently, I got a taste of just how baffling and restrictive YouTube can be. 3 days before Christmas, my last video about lions got demonetized. Why? I don't know. They don't tell you. Demonetization can take something we worked on for months and essentially flush it down the toilet. The money we depend on to pay our staff lit on fire with no explanation. Let me tell you, this sucks. So I was desperate for a solution. I appealed the demonetization, blurred out the lions hunting anything just in case that was the problem, and waited for their final decision. And after a few days, the decision was reversed, and the video was remonetized, again with no explanation.
YouTube suck when it comes to this kind of stuff. So I don't do movie reactions anymore. Movie reactions, TV show reactions, I barely do them anymore. Because you spend, what I do is not even anywhere near the amount of work that these guys have to do with these videos, man. You know? But editing a movie reaction, bro, and then it gets slapped down, it gets demonetized or copyright claimed, and it's never worth it. It's not worth it. You know, it's so demoralizing, bro. It's like, fuck it, man. I stopped doing movie reactions because of this. You know? It's like, it's so much work, and then you post it and it's like useless. You know? It's a lot of hard, it's fucking work, man. And it's nowhere even near to what these guys do. This is way harder. This is so much more work. And they get demonetized, man. YouTube. Yeah. That's why I fucking stopped uploading on YouTube. Just find me on Patreon or whatever. Fuck this.
Was reversed, and the video was remonetized, again with no explanation. Was it all a mistake? Was it the lions hunting that was the issue? Did blurring things out help? I have no idea, and I will never know. I'm glad the video was remonetized, but I can't help but be upset at the opaque process.
Yeah.
But luckily, there's an incredible lifeboat for situations like this, and that is Nebula. Nebula is the streaming platform created by and for independent and educational content creators, and it's a place that isn't concerned with the demands of corporate advertisers. It provides a space for us to share our videos without the restrictions of YouTube, which provides us income and stability when YouTube does not. And for viewers of Nebula, it's the best place for incredible original content that you can't get anywhere else, like my Nebula original series Becoming Human and Archaeology Quest, 2 shows about our ancient past, one serious, one silly. There are so many amazing series that push the boundaries, things that YouTube would deem unsuitable for advertisers. Things like Neo's Underexposure series, which talks about the dark side of modern topics, like the construction of the Twin Towers, the Bin Laden raid, or the rising of the Titanic. Or Modern Conflicts, a series from real-life lore that explores recent struggles between nations and people. YouTube def wouldn't like that one. Plus, Nebula is a better viewing experience for everyone. There are no ads, lots of content that gets published to Nebula first before YouTube, and tons of exclusive content. Sometimes this is extended episodes or behind-the-scenes content, like Real Engineering's behind-the-scenes adventures in Greenland. And right now, we're offering gift cards to Nebula for you to give to family members. This is a great last-minute gift idea. It's a totally digital, instant gift that will give your friends and family so much original content without having to worry about yet another subscription. 1 year subscription is only $36.
Why am I sitting through this? Check them out. Check them out on Nebula or whatever. Maybe, I don't know if I can upload my shit on Nebula, because I experience the same issue with YouTube, man. A 3-hour movie reaction that takes me almost an entire day to edit, and then it just gets blocked, claimed. I don't even mind it gets demonetized or whatever. It's a lot of hard work that just gets nullified. You know, I'm not going to edit an entire movie reaction and not get something out of it, bro. You know, and this is way harder what they do. And even these guys get slapped with copyright, with demonetization and shit like that, man. They don't bother to explain. Get your shit together, YouTube, man. I don't think advertisers care, man. Just let it be, man. If someone wants to advertise, let them advertise on your shit, man. I think I'll try this Nebula. I'll try Nebula. Because like I know what I know like how I can relate to what she's talking about. And yeah, YouTube, man. Get your shit together, bro. Get your shit together, man. Stop ruining videos. Stop bumming creators out. They leave, man. You know they do this because they're the biggest platform. There should be other platforms that rival this. They are there, but it's hard for people to switch. You know, it's hard to get me to click on something on another link. Even Patreon is hard to bother with. I get it, you know. Thank you. For you guys who are on Patreon and stuff, cause yeah, YouTube ruin it, man. They really do. They really do. Like I'll have a good movie that I'd love to react to, or a TV show that I want to get into. Like I experienced this with Peep Show. All my Peep Show videos got demonetized. I got to a point I stopped doing Peep Show because they were demonetizing everything, and then someone requested, and I just felt like, you know what, bro, I'll do it just for you, man. And I just finished the show, but they all got demonetized. Not blocked, demonetized. Yeah. You're chasing you're chasing creators from your platform with that shit, man. And no one gives a fuck. No one cares, man. Who are these advertisers that are ruining videos for people? Anyway, like that took over. You were talking about the Greenland shark. Fascinating animal. That growth rate is crazy. Super slow. A centimeter per year, man. How tall would I be? How tall would you be? Yeah, what a creature, man. I just... The eye thing. The parasite is crazy. You know, imagine that, man. Like a speck of dust enters your eye and you have to stop and address it. These guys are just... They can't even... They don't have like appendages or limbs that they can use to scratch that shit off. They can't even like brush up against the surface to take that shit off. It's sad. It sucks for them, dude. It sucks. Low metabolism. You know. These are all factors that kind of like make it live super long. Not much wear and tear. Not much energy expenditure. What a creature, bro. Greenland shark. They're like specialists, man. They're specialized to that area, that climate. I'll see you guys in the next one, man. Check out our channel and check out Nebula and stuff, man, because I don't know. The problem is real. The struggle is real, man. You know, I can attest to that, bro. YouTube will really, it demoralizes you and you're like, fuck making videos. Fuck this shit. Especially like stuff that requires a lot of editing and stuff. It's a joke. I'll see you guys, man. Peace.